Guys, meteorologist Chris Tomer here with this On the Snow Before You Go forecast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you get notified when my latest forecasts come out. And let me just give you my bullet points here. Here's what I'm seeing over the next 7, 8, 9 days. There are two additional storm systems for the West. One's happening 216, 217, 218. And then the second storm, which is a major storm system, 219 and 220. So a lot of places are going to see that overlap in snow between the two storms. And then that second storm sort of opens the door for a very favorable moist flow for a lot of the Pacific Northwest and a lot of BC, northern Idaho, northwest Montana, um, between basically 219 and 224, all the way out there. And we could see some pretty big totals in those areas. In fact, here's my snow timeline. Best odds of snow for Big Sky, Wasatch, Tetons, Colorado, interior BC, the Pacific Northwest, Tahoe, and the Northeast. So, for example, in Big Sky, moderate to heavy accumulation 217, 218, and then moderate to heavy 219, 220. In the Wasatch, your prime snow comes in. You're going to see some evening of 216 into 217, but then heavy 219, 220. Tetons, heavy, I mean, a really heavy flow, really great targeting here with the flow, 216, 17, 18, and then light to moderate 219. Colorado, you're going to see some snow into 217, 218, and then heavy 219, 220. So you get the idea. There's a first wave, and then there's a second wave, and you can see the other dates. And in particular, in interior BC, 220 to 223 could really generate some great snowfall across a lot of British Columbia and even the Pacific Northwest. Here's another way to think about this. Here's my snow, my spider chart, odds of best snow. More purple, higher on the web, better odds of snow. And it's going to be tough to miss this time around if you just especially target the Wasatch, the Tetons, the central to northern mountains of Colorado, a lot of Montana, parts of central to northern Idaho are going to be in there. And then late in the period, the Pacific Northwest, British Columbia, all those areas are going to have more purple higher on the web. And so is the Northeast. I mean, you've got some pretty decent snow or very early in the period, and then potentially one more storm system down the road. And in fact, here is that timeline for the Northeast. So heavy snow 216, maybe even into early 217. So if you're skiing 217, the Northeast is going to be a good place. And then potentially some light additional snow on 220. Let me show you what the jet stream is going to look like. So these are the winds up at about 30,000 feet jet stream level. And this is what I look at when I'm looking for steering winds, the storm track. So I'm looking for the yellows, the oranges, the reds, the tans. Those are going to be your stronger winds at jet level, helping to move storm systems around the country. So we'll start this at lunchtime. We'll start this at lunchtime on Monday. So let me push this ahead. And there's our next storm system that continues 216, 17 into 18. You can see the little dip in the jet kind of diving down through Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, into Utah and Colorado. This is late on Monday, the 17th. Here's early on the 18th. There's your little storm crossing Colorado. And then it moves out into the plains, and then that could turn into a storm for the Northeast. All right, looking down the road. All right, here's early on the 19th. There comes our next storm system. 219, 220, somewhere in there, dives into the Pacific Northwest, opens the flow for the Northwest, and then continues to move into Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and eventually into Colorado. Here's early on February 20th, moves through Colorado, and look at the flow up there, little kinks in the jet moving through the Pacific Northwest and BC with a good flow of moisture. Look at that jet right there targeting the Northeast. Okay, let me show you forecast snow accumulation over time. We'll start this early on Monday, February 17th. So two different storms going on. One exiting the Northeast, another one coming down through the Intermountain out of the Pacific Northwest. Wasatch, Tetons, Colorado. Here's late on Monday the 17th. Still some leftover snow early Tuesday through Wyoming and Colorado. And then that storm moves out into the heartland, becomes a storm for the Midwest and eventually the East. Next storm already hitting the Pacific Northwest. Here we are early on February 20th. The energy's diving down through Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. And there is late on the 20th. A little bit of extra moisture there on the 21st. And then look at BC up there. So this is the 21st, and it's snowing hard across a lot of the coastal range and interior BC. There's early on the 22nd. That moves away, but that's not it. Next storm hits the BC area on the 23rd, and that one looks like heavy snow. Some of that leaks down into northern Idaho and northwest Montana. There's late on the 23rd. All right, here's my forecast. So this is all of the 17th through the 23rd. We'll start in the Wasatch, and I'm thinking probably 1 to 2 feet of accumulation, maybe a bit more up there with the higher end amounts in Little and Big Cottonwood Canyons. Up in the Tetons, probably 2 to 2.5 feet of snow, somewhere in that area. I mean, this is just a really rich flow for the Tetons. Montana's looking good, 13 to 16 inches, depending on your location. Central to northern Idaho, 18 to 20. I've got a lot of 20s up there in interior BC. In fact, 2 feet for Revelstoke. Again, late in the period is when that really turns favorable. And then some of that actually does make it down in the Sunshine Banff, and potentially Marmot Basin could see over a foot of accumulation. Good stuff for the Pacific Northwest, 1, 2, 3 feet of accumulation, again, late in the period. A little bit of that in central to northern California, but nothing to write home about. And there's going to be some snow in Colorado, especially in the central to northern mountains with 10 to 16, maybe 10 to 20 inches. The highest amount should be up in the northern mountains. And there's going to be some in southern Colorado, northern New Mexico, looks like about 6 to 10 inches of accumulation. Again, that runs through the 23rd. Now, in the northeast, heavy snow continues into early 217. Keep in mind, it snowed a lot on 216 and it's going to snow into early 217. So 217 will be a powder day. And then the next storm system, we're going to have to watch the track on that. If it shifts a little further to the north, then all these numbers are going to go up. But looking at generally, and Ragged Mountain, that should read 2 inches, not 12. So that should be 2 to 3 inches for a lot of the resorts. So not a huge amount of snow during the time period, but again, have to watch that storm system. Let me look at the date on that last storm. So potentially some light snow on 220. If the track shifts to the north, then all the numbers go up. But keep in mind, heavy snow on 216 into early 217. All right, we'll end on the big western map here. And again, there are definitely some bullseyes with two different storm systems, the Wasatch, the Tetons, central to northern mountains of Colorado, parts of Montana, central to northern Idaho, the Pacific Northwest. All these places look good during this time period. Um, so get out there, enjoy it, be safe. And I appreciate you tuning in here to this On the Snow Before You Go forecast. Take care.